She fled with her child in her arms, desperate, unsure of where she would end up. The road seemed endless, but it was there, at the isolated house of a solitary farmer, that she found shelter. He was a man marked by the past, avoided by everyone. But in that moment, their fates crossed in an unexpected way. What she didn't know was that, in searching for refuge, something deeper and more unexpected was about to happen. Something that would change everything forever. The sun had not yet risen, and the sky carried the greyish hue of dawn when Eliza opened her eyes for the 10th time that night. Every sound in the mansion seemed amplified. The creak of the noble wooden doors, the echo of footsteps in the hall, the wind whispering through the tall windows, and the faint creaks of the wooden floor under the cold morning temperature. Lucas, her 5-year-old son, slept soundly in the luxuriously decorated room, unaware of the silent storms that surrounded his mother. "Eliza!" Bruno's voice sliced through the silence like a knife, full of disdain. "Still here, huh? Looks like you need a push to remember that you don't command anything in this house." Eliza's heart froze, but she took a deep breath, trying not to show fear. Each of his words was like an invisible blade, slowly cutting away the trust and hope she tried to keep alive. The mansion was impeccable, spacious halls, crystal chandeliers, heavy curtains, and fine tapestries adorning every wall. Visitors who arrived in the village were enchanted by the beauty of the place, never imagining the humiliations, the fear, and the oppression that hid behind each luxurious door. She closed her eyes for a moment, and the memory of her forced marriage hit her like a wave. The day she found herself forced to marry Bruno, an agreement made between her parents, sealed with promises and pressures she had never asked for. The white dress, the silent and cold ceremony, the grip of Bruno's hand, the coldness in his eyes when he said, "Now you are mine." And above all, the forced wedding night, marked by pain, shame, and the feeling that her life had been taken from her without consent. That memory never left her in peace. Even so, Eliza kept small moments of hope in her heart. Watching Lucas sleep, she felt the love that pulsed in every gesture of his, the urgency to protect him. She imagined a different future, a world outside the mansion where he could run through the gardens of life without fear, free from his father's cruel orders. Every corridor of the palace seemed paradoxically both a prison and a path to freedom, reminding her that there was a world beyond that silent suffering. "One day, my little one, one day we will leave," she murmured, gently touching Lucas's head. "I promise we'll find freedom." Eliza remembered the stories she had heard as a child about women who managed to start over. Stories of courage, daring escapes, and rebuilt lives. But no matter how much she wanted to forget, the feeling of helplessness haunted her. The forced night with Bruno, his cruel touch and coldness, the constant fear of being humiliated in front of the servants or any unexpected visitors. She had to be strong, not just for herself, but for Lucas, who deserved to grow up without seeing his mother cowering in fear in every room of the mansion. The day dragged on slowly. Eliza took care of Lucas, discreetly supervised the house's organization, and tried to maintain the appearance of normalcy in front of the servants and occasional visitors. Every gesture was measured, every word spoken carefully, because any slip-up could awaken Bruno's fury. As she walked through the wide corridors, decorated with expensive furniture and works of art, her mind wandered to the fields, to the life she could have had, to the smiles she longed to see on Lucas's face without the weight of oppression. "Mommy?" Lucas asked, stretching in his room. "Why can't I play like the other boys?" Eliza smiled, though the pain in her heart tightened. "One day you will, my love. One day we'll run through the world without anyone telling us what to do." She hugged him tightly, feeling the weight of responsibility. "But now we need to be strong." The darkness of the early morning covered the village like a heavy cloak, and Eliza felt each beat of her heart like a drum resounding in her ears. Lucas slept deeply in her arms, small and vulnerable, completely unaware of the danger that lurked behind the golden walls of the mansion. Every step she took on the cold stone of the courtyard seemed to echo in the silence, as if the entire night was ready to denounce her. She remembered every detail, the possible routes, the gates that could be opened carefully, the side street that led to the dirt roads that cut through the village. Fear mixed with urgency. Any misstep could mean the end of the freedom she had dreamed of. Bruno could wake up at any moment, and the servants, though silent, might notice her and alert him. "Mommy," Lucas murmured, turning his head to look at her with half-closed eyes. Eliza pressed him tightly to her chest. "Shh. Don't worry, my love. We're leaving. Nothing will hurt us." But she herself needed to believe that. The adrenaline ran through her veins, mixed with guilt. She was fleeing from the man who had forced her into a life of pain, leaving behind everything she knew, including the illusory safety of the mansion. Every shadow seemed to move, every gust of wind seemed to carry a whisper of threat. She felt the fear tighten her chest, but the love for Lucas was greater than any terror she could feel. The front gate of the mansion creaked as she opened it slowly. Every noise seemed amplified, and for a moment Eliza froze, holding Lucas tightly against her body. The cold wind of the early morning blew through her dress, and she remembered every night when Bruno had humiliated her, every cruel word that had stolen her confidence. Now she had to be stronger than that fear, faster than the past. She ran along the dirt paths she had known since childhood, carrying Lucas in her firm arms, the blanket wrapped around him like a shield against the cold and danger. Every step was uncertain. The wet mud, loose stones, and exposed roots made her ankles tremble, but she couldn't stop. At every moment, she felt that Bruno could appear at any second, his boots thundering behind her, his angry voice cutting through the night. "We're almost there, my love," she whispered, trying to convince herself that they would make it. Fear became almost palpable when, suddenly, she heard a crack behind her. Her heart raced, and instinct took over. She ducked to cross a small fallen wooden fence, Lucas safe against her chest, and ran faster, breathing heavily. Desperation almost made her stumble, but hope kept her steps steady. She needed to reach a safe place, far from Bruno's shadow, far from the oppression that had marked her life. The cold wind dragged dry leaves along the paths, and the sound of a dog barking in the distance made her stop for a second. She pressed Lucas against her, murmuring words of encouragement and love, trying to calm him as her own body trembled. Every tree seemed to move, every shadow seemed to have eyes, and she felt the weight of loneliness crush her chest. But there was also a faint light on the horizon, not from the village, but from the freedom she had long sought. In her mind, flashes of the past life emerged. The forced night with Bruno, the broken promises, his cold gaze when he woke up. That memory propelled her, reminding her that the past could no longer imprison her. Lucas deserved more than those memories. He deserved to run free, laugh without fear, live without screams. And for him, she had to keep going. She hid between tall trees, gasping for breath, watching the mansion from afar. The light still shone in some rooms, but nothing seemed to move. For a moment, the silence was so intense that it felt as though the earth itself was holding its breath. Eliza took a deep breath, feeling her heart still racing, and decided to keep going. Every step took her further away from what had hurt her. Every step brought her closer to a future that seemed impossible, but now within reach. Desperation mixed with hope when she heard branches breaking behind her. It wasn't Bruno, but the feeling of being followed wouldn't leave her. Every noise could mean capture. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Her muscles ached, but she couldn't stop. She couldn't let Lucas's life be swallowed by the darkness again. When the first light of dawn began to tint the sky, Eliza found a small grove that reminded her of her childhood walks. There, she could rest for a few minutes, protected by tall and dense trees. She sat on a fallen log, placing Lucas in her lap, and let the tears fall freely. But along with them came the certainty. They had taken the first steps toward freedom. "We made it, Lucas. We're free," she whispered, even though she wasn't fully sure, but trying to make hope real for both of them. The danger had not passed, and she knew that. Bruno could appear at any moment, and every moment away from the mansion was a battle against fear, doubt, and insecurity. But in that little refuge, between the shadows of the trees and the first rays of sunlight, Eliza felt something she hadn't felt in years, the possibility of starting over. And as she slowly walked through the grove, holding Lucas tightly, she made a silent promise to herself. She would never let the past catch up with them again. Nothing and no one could steal the courage that drove her. "We'll make it, my love," she whispered, kissing his forehead. "Nothing will stop us." At that moment, Eliza understood that the escape was not just physical, but also emotional. It was the breaking of invisible chains that had held her, the victory over oppression, the chance to rewrite her own story. And as the first rays of the sun tinged the sky with orange and pink, mother and son walked step by step toward an uncertain future, but one full of hope and freedom. The exhaustion made every step Eliza took feel impossible. Her feet were sore, her body ached, her arms trembled holding Lucas, but she couldn't stop. Every fallen trunk, every exposed root in the path seemed like an insurmountable obstacle, and her breath came in short, ragged gasps. Desperation mixed with hope. She needed to find a safe place before Bruno or his henchmen caught up with them. The first rays of dawn painted the sky in pale orange hues, and the silhouette of a distant house began to emerge between tall trees. It was unlike anything Eliza had ever seen, sturdy, isolated, with the air of something that didn't belong to the village, surrounded by fields and a dense forest. Her heart raced. Maybe there was shelter there. Maybe she could finally rest. She walked faster, feeling Lucas stir in her arms, uneasy with the cold and the weight of tension. "I know, my love," she whispered, stroking his hair. "We're almost there. Everything will be all right." As she got closer, she saw the heavy wooden gate, closed but without any apparent locks. She knocked hesitantly, almost praying that someone would answer. The wait seemed eternal. Then the veranda door opened slowly, revealing the tall and imposing figure of a man who seemed sculpted from the very shadow of the morning. He had a cold look, firm features, stubble, and dark eyes that seemed to assess every movement she made, every word, every intention. "Who are you?" His voice was deep, almost cutting, and each syllable seemed to weigh heavily in the air. Eliza swallowed hard, feeling panic try to take over. My name is Eliza. I need help. Please." She held back the tears, trying to keep her voice steady, but the distress slipped through. I can clean, cook, do laundry, anything. We just need a place to sleep. For one night, please." His gaze remained fixed on her, scrutinizing every detail. Her torn clothes, the dirty hair, the weight of Lucas in her arms. There was something in his expression that showed distrust, but also a spark of curiosity. He didn't speak for several long seconds, and each second felt like an eternity. Eliza felt her heart almost stop, fearing he would turn her away, that the freedom she had dreamed of would be ripped from her hands. "Come in," he said finally, his voice low but firm, almost a command. "But be careful. I expect nothing more than what you need." Relief and gratitude flooded Eliza. Thank you so much," she murmured, almost breathless. "I promise I won't be a bother. We just need a safe place, just for today." He made a vague gesture with his hand, indicating they could enter, and went back inside the house, opening the door with a calmness that contrasted with her desperation. The farmer's house was different from anything she had seen. Simple, sturdy, yet organized. There was the scent of old wood mixed with burning firewood in the stove, and every corner seemed safe, far from the danger she had left behind. "You can stay here," he said, finally approaching. "There are makeshift beds, but it's safe." His tone was direct, almost cold, but there was an implicit care in the way he spoke, a silent respect for the situation. Eliza carefully set Lucas down on the floor, holding him again, feeling the weight of relief mixed with extreme exhaustion. "Thank you so much," she repeated, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to say. Just thank you." He crossed his arms, watching them. "You don't have to say anything. Just stay. Tomorrow we'll decide the next steps." With that, he went back into the room, leaving Eliza alone with Lucas. As she settled in, she felt exhaustion finally take over. Her shoulders slumped, her muscles relaxed, and for the first time in hours, she took a deep breath. But her mind remained alert. She knew Bruno could appear, that the danger still loomed over them, and that the safety was only temporary. Eliza sat on the floor, resting Lucas against her chest and stroking his hair, trying to convey some sense of security to him. "We're safe for now, my love. Just for now," she murmured, feeling tears of exhaustion and fear trickle down her face. "But tomorrow we'll continue, and we'll make it." As she observed the farmer more closely for the first time, she noticed something beyond his coldness. There was security in this man, a silent strength that didn't need shouting or orders. Something about him told her she could trust him, even if it was just a thread of hope. And in that moment, exhausted, desperate, and at the same time filled with hope, Eliza realized that this encounter could change everything. "Thank you for helping us," she said softly, almost to herself. I hope I can trust you." The farmer simply kept his firm gaze, silent, assessing, calculating. But there was something in his expression that suggested, even though he was wary, he had accepted the responsibility of protecting those who showed up at his door in times of need. The sun had barely risen on the horizon when Eliza woke, smelling the comforting scent of fresh coffee and baked bread. She woke to find Lucas nestled beside her, sleeping peacefully for the first time in days, and a weight of relief mixed with anxiety filled her. "Good morning, Mommy," he murmured, opening his sleepy eyes. "Good morning, my love," she responded, stroking his hair, feeling the warmth of safety for the first time. As she got out of the makeshift bed, she noticed the table was already set. A steaming kettle, ceramic cups, and a tray with fresh bread and fruit were waiting for them. Ethan watched in silence, maintaining that firm, reserved posture that kept her on edge. "Thank you," Eliza said, her voice thick with gratitude. "For everything. Just make good use of the meal," he replied, almost brusque, but there was a softness that only the most attentive could perceive. As they had breakfast, a comfortable silence settled. Lucas delighted in the bread and butter, and Eliza finally managed to relax a little, feeling that this place might truly be safe. Once finished, she felt it was time to break the barrier. "May I ask, what's your name?" she asked carefully, trying not to sound intrusive. Ethan watched her for a moment, evaluating the question, but finally responded firmly, "My name is Ethan." Eliza smiled slightly, feeling a strange mix of relief and curiosity at the same time. I'm Eliza. Eliza, and this is Lucas," she said, pointing to her son. "Thank you so much, really." Ethan nodded, a simple gesture, but one that carried recognition. "Today I'll show you around the farm," he said, getting up. "I want you to know what you can do if you decide to stay here. There's work, but it's nothing you can't learn." Eliza followed behind him, her eyes alert to every detail. The farm was vast, with well-maintained fields, wooden fences, barns, and organized sheds. Each animal seemed to know exactly where it belonged, and the atmosphere conveyed order, discipline, and security, but also a sense of isolation. She took a deep breath, absorbing every instruction, every detail, every gesture from Ethan. "You can take care of the smaller animals, prepare whatever is needed, help with cleaning. But I want you to be discreet. This place is not just work, it's also protection," he explained, with that tone that combined authority and silent care. Eliza paid attention to every word, absorbing it all. She wanted to show that she was capable, that she deserved this shelter, and that she could trust him despite the mystery he carried. As soon as Ethan finished showing the space, she stepped forward, determined. "I can do that. I really want to help and stay here." Ethan studied her determined expression, noting the seriousness in her voice. There was something about her that intrigued him. She moved with care, attention, and speed, demonstrating not just willingness, but a practical intelligence that was hard to ignore. "Very well," he said, almost whispering to himself, watching her work. "But I'll be keeping an eye on you." Eliza began her tasks immediately. She fed some smaller animals, cleaned the small shed, and organized a few tools. Lucas explored the surroundings under Ethan's watchful eye, who kept a certain distance, but never missed a detail of what was going on. While she worked, he watched her carefully. There was something about this woman that didn't reveal itself completely. Her movements, her attentive gaze, the way she protected Lucas, and how she navigated the farm indicated that there was more to her than this apparent fragility. She was hiding something, a secret that he could feel intuitively, but didn't yet know what it was. Eliza finished one of the tasks and approached him, trying to hide her exhaustion, maintaining her composure. Is this how you want me to do it?" she asked, seeking approval. Ethan simply observed her in silence, as if every movement she made was being analyzed with precision. "Yes," he replied finally. "You're learning quickly. That doesn't go unnoticed." For a moment, the tension between them became palpable. Eliza felt a chill run down her spine, as though his gaze was piercing deeply, trying to read every thought, every fear, every memory she was trying to conceal. But there was also a strange feeling of safety, as if he were the anchor she didn't know she needed. I'll do my best," she said firmly, trying to show confidence. "I really want to prove I can stay here." Ethan didn't respond immediately. He continued watching, silent, calculating, but there was a subtle shift in his posture. The attention, once rigid, now carried something else, a mix of curiosity and silent assessment. The day went on, and Eliza worked diligently. Each movement she made showed not only skill, but determination, courage, and the will to protect Lucas at any cost. And while she dedicated herself to the tasks, Ethan remained there, silently watching, sensing that the secret she carried could eventually change everything between them. But it wasn't time to know yet. The first impression wasn't just simple sympathy. There was distrust, yes, but also a silent recognition. This woman, despite the fear, the escape, and the exhaustion, was someone capable of surviving, and perhaps even transforming his life too. And on that first day, as the afternoon began to fall over the farm, Eliza understood that this place wasn't just shelter. It was the first real chance for a new beginning. The first days on the farm passed with an intense routine, but strangely welcoming. Eliza quickly learned to deal with the animals, organize the sheds, and prepare whatever was needed, always with Lucas by her side. Every morning, she woke up early, fed the small animals, cleaned the designated spaces, and little by little, she felt the weight of exhaustion mixed with the sense of safety that was beginning to take root. Lucas smiled again, running across the fields, laughing as he chased fallen branches and birds that approached the barn. On a particularly calm afternoon, Eliza decided to take Lucas to the veranda of the main house. The sun was setting gently, painting the sky in golden and pink hues. She sat in a wooden chair, holding Lucas, who was absorbed in watching a butterfly fluttering between the flowers in the garden. The light laughter of her son echoed across the space, a melody that had long been absent from her life. "Look, Mommy! It almost landed on my hand," Lucas exclaimed, trying to follow the butterfly carefully. Eliza smiled, feeling a pang in her heart, a mix of joy and relief. "That's right, my love. Go slowly, don't scare it," she said, kissing his forehead. As she watched him play, she felt a silent presence beside her. Ethan had appeared unannounced, leaning against the veranda. She almost jumped at his sudden presence, but he simply looked at her with the same intensity as always. "No beating around the bush," he said bluntly. "You're hiding something." Eliza frowned, confused. "I don't understand." "You showed up desperate in the middle of the night, asking to work in exchange for shelter," he continued, his dark eyes penetrating hers. "Tell me what's going on." Silence hung between them, heavy and filled with tension. Eliza felt tears welling up in her eyes, the weight of years of fear, humiliation, and insecurity accumulating all at once. She took a deep breath and with a trembling voice began, "You're right. I ran away from my own house," she said, swallowing the pain. "My parents, they arranged my marriage to Bruno. I didn't want it. I never did. He humiliated me, made me feel like nothing. And I didn't want to live like that. And I didn't want Lucas to grow up in that fear and pain." Ethan remained silent for a moment, just watching her. Then, with firm calm, he approached her. He placed a gentle hand on Eliza's face, wiping away the tears that flowed without restraint. "No one will ever make you feel like that again," he said, his voice low and firm but full of emotion. "Not you. Not Lucas. I won't let anything bad happen to you." Eliza felt her heart race. For the first time in a long time, she felt that she didn't have to carry the weight alone anymore. She leaned into him, and Lucas approached, sensing the protection emanating from Ethan. The wind gently blew, swaying the veranda curtain, and for a few moments the pain and fear of the past seemed to dissolve in that safe space. Ethan didn't speak much, but his presence, his touch, and his gaze were enough to convey the promise of protection and absolute care. "Thank you," Eliza whispered, swallowing her sobs. "Thank you for listening to me, for believing that we can have a better life." Ethan simply nodded, maintaining firm eye contact, conveying more with his eyes than any words could. "Now, we'll take care of each other." And so, in that moment, trust began to grow, mixed with a new and unfamiliar feeling, but one that was comforting. As the afternoon wore on, Eliza sat on the veranda holding Lucas in her arms, watching him play with the butterfly. She felt the first real spark of hope in a long time. And while Ethan remained silent beside her, she knew that finally she had found someone she could trust, someone who wouldn't let the past or the fears of the present destroy her life or her son's. After that intense conversation on the veranda, something shifted between them. Ethan began to approach the responsibility of protecting Eliza and Lucas with even more seriousness, as if every gesture of his carried the weight of a silent promise. The following days were filled with farm routines, small tasks, and the coexistence began to reveal previously invisible nuances, lingering glances, subtle gestures, care that emerged even in the smallest things. There was a new respect, a delicate and almost imperceptible tension that floated in the air whenever they crossed paths, filled with contained feelings that didn't need to be explained. On a silent dawn, when darkness seemed to envelop the entire farm, Eliza rose, restless. Her heavy heart thudded in her chest, bringing painful memories and concerns about the future. She walked to the main room, needing air and a moment of tranquility. When she opened the door, she found Ethan sitting alone, his posture rigid, but his eyes lost in the emptiness of the night. He didn't notice her immediately, absorbed in thoughts that weighed as heavily as the world on his shoulders. "Aren't you sleeping?" she asked softly, approaching, feeling a mix of anxiety and courage. He raised his eyes, surprised, but the exhaustion couldn't be hidden. "No, I can't sleep," he answered, his voice low, heavy with fatigue. "Like you, I have my wounds. I lost my parents early, in an accident. It was difficult. It created a tough shell around me. I became cold, distant, but that doesn't mean I don't feel." Ethan sighed, and for a moment silence hung between them, heavy and vulnerable. Eliza slowly approached, feeling her heart tighten at the rare vulnerability of this man. "You don't have to carry this alone. Just like I found the courage to fight for my son, you can trust that you're not alone now. You don't have to be cold anymore to protect yourself. You don't have to." Ethan looked at her, the shock of her proximity and the delicacy of her words, cutting through layers that had been sealed for a long time. She held his hand firmly but gently, and he felt something he hadn't in years, the warmth of someone willing to see beyond the mask he wore. He began, but the words failed him in the face of the intensity of the moment. Eliza didn't say anything. She moved closer, gently touching his face, and the silence became eloquent. Their eyes met, conveying trust, relief, and restrained desire. Then, almost naturally, their lips touched, first hesitantly, then with increasing intensity, as if each kiss were a silent promise of healing, trust, and mutual protection. "Ethan," she murmured between his lips, holding his face with both hands, as if wanting to imprint every detail. "Eliza," he replied, his voice hoarse, her hand against his, bringing life to feelings he hadn't known still existed. In that instant, the pain of the past seemed to dissipate, replaced by understanding and bonds of affection. Each scar, each painful memory, every shared fear became strength and intimacy. Lucas slept peacefully in another room, unaware of the silent transformation happening there, while two hearts, tired and wounded, found solace and hope in one another. When they finally separated, breathing together, Ethan held her hand, his deep gaze conveying protection, care, and surrender. "Thank you for being here, for protecting us, for believing that we can have a better life," Eliza whispered, feeling safe for the first time in so long. "You don't need to thank me," he replied, still holding her hand, bringing her face closer to his. "I want to be here, with you, with Lucas." And his voice, now softer, carried a firm, silent promise. The silence of the night, the warmth of the touch, and the intensity of the gaze were more than enough. Ethan leaned in and kissed her again, this time with a mix of tenderness and restrained desire, making it clear that he didn't just want to protect, but to be present, close, to share both the weight and the lightness of the life they were beginning to build. Eliza, feeling safe and finally understood, responded to the kiss with total surrender. Each touch, each shared sigh, strengthened the bond between them. There was no rush, no fear, just the certainty that together they could face the ghosts of the past and build something that was only theirs. When they separated, still breathing together, Ethan whispered almost inaudibly, "You showed me something I had forgotten I could feel. Trust. Hope. You made me feel alive again." Eliza smiled, resting her head on his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat and the warmth of the man who, until then, always seemed distant. "And you gave me something I didn't even know I needed. Security, courage, and someone who believes in me." That night, wrapped in the silence of the house and the gentle hum of the wind between the trees, two wounded hearts found not just solace, but love. A love that promised healing, protection, and the possibility of a new beginning. Time passed quickly, and the coexistence of Eliza, Lucas, and Ethan had turned into routine. Mornings were filled with the distant song of birds, the smell of fresh coffee, and the sound of tools on the farm. Lucas ran freely across the fields, his laughter echoing between the barns, while Eliza learned to manage the tasks, always under Ethan's watchful eye, who maintained a delicate balance between authority, care, and silent observation. The fear that once consumed her now seemed dissolved, replaced by a trust that grew each day. They shared simple yet profound moments, lingering glances over coffee, small touches while tending to Lucas, conversations on the veranda at sunset. The routine created an invisible bond, a feeling that grew steadily, but with enough strength to turn every everyday gesture into a silent promise. However, the peace that seemed as fragile as it was necessary was about to be interrupted. On a hot afternoon, while Eliza and Lucas played near the orchard, Ethan noticed suspicious movement on the dirt road leading to the farm. His body immediately tensed, muscles stiffened, his eyes piercing, observing every detail. 3 figures appeared on the horizon, and the first one made his heart freeze. Bruno, her husband, accompanied by 2 men who were clearly hired thugs. Ethan's protective instinct kicked in immediately. He pushed Eliza inside the house, holding Lucas firmly and determinedly. "Hide in the room," he ordered, his voice low and full of authority. "Don't come out, and don't let them touch you." Eliza obeyed immediately, her heart racing as she shut the door behind them. The heavy sound of the wood closing seemed to mark the beginning of something dangerous, something that would test every fiber of courage and trust they had built. Ethan stepped outside with firm strides, his body rigid, fists clenched, facing Bruno and the 2 thugs accompanying him. The air seemed heavy, each second carrying a threat and electricity. "I warned you no one would touch her," Ethan said, his voice low, controlled but sharp, each word carrying the promise of consequences. "I want what's mine back," Bruno shouted, rage overflowing from every syllable, his eyes burning with fury. "You can't stop me. No one can." The silence that followed was broken by the snap of quick steps. The confrontation began in an instant. Ethan moved with lethal precision, each strike calculated, knocking down the 2 thugs with brutal force. One fell to the dirt floor, the other staggered backward, dazed, the smell of sweat, tension, and screams mixed with adrenaline, creating a suffocating atmosphere. Bruno advanced, each step filled with hatred, his fists clenched and his intent clear, to destroy. When the thugs were neutralized, Bruno completely lost control. His facial muscles contracted in pure rage, and he lunged at Ethan like a hungry animal, grabbing him by the neck and slamming him against the wall. The air disappeared, and Ethan felt each second stretch into eternity. "You're going to pay for this," Bruno growled, his breath heavy, each word a blow. That was when he saw Eliza through the window. She was holding Lucas tightly, her eyes wide with fear, but there was something there that struck him like a lightning bolt. Courage. The man who had sworn to protect realized he couldn't give in. A wave of strength coursed through his body, mixing anger, love, and determination, and he found energy he didn't know he had. With brutal effort, Ethan shoved Bruno back, regaining his balance. But Bruno was ferocious, charging again, ignoring the pain, the hatred in his eyes burning even stronger. Eliza, driven by her own determination, began shouting, hitting his arms, distracting him, creating space for Ethan to react. The confrontation became a storm of quick, violent movements. Ethan struck Bruno with a firm blow, sending him crashing into the uneven ground. He stumbled, lost his balance, and finally fell, dazed and defeated. Eliza ran to the door, tears and sweat mixed, her knees weak, but finally safe. Ethan wasted no time. He grabbed Lucas in his arms, shielding him like a living shield, and embraced Eliza, keeping her close, breathing together. Every beat of his heart conveyed relief and protection. "It's all right now," Ethan said, his voice hoarse, firm, filled with restrained emotion. "I won't let anything happen to you, or Lucas. Never." "Thank you," Eliza replied, tears rolling down her face, the emotion almost choking her. "Thank you for not leaving us, for fighting for us." They stayed embraced, both hearts still racing, breaths shallow. Lucas, nestled in Ethan's arms, laughed timidly, feeling for the first time that he was truly safe. The silence that fell over the farm was heavy, but not with fear. It was proof that love and courage grow stronger in times of crisis. Every touch, every glance, every shared breath made the mutual promise even stronger, to protect and care no matter the danger. And as they looked at each other, still trembling from the adrenaline, Eliza felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. She was finally home, truly safe, surrounded by someone who would do anything to protect her. The bond that formed that night, in terror and struggle, was unbreakable, forged in trust, surrender, and absolute love. The silence that followed the intense confrontation lingered over the farm like a mantle of relief. The wind blew gently through the trees, carrying with it the scent of wet earth, wood, and the promise of better days. Eliza breathed deeply, still holding Lucas in Ethan's arms, feeling every beat of his heart, every calm breath that finally seemed at peace. For the first time in a long time, there was peace. In the days that followed, life seemed to reorganize almost miraculously. Bruno, the man who had destroyed years of happiness and security, was finally captured. A detailed investigation revealed the extent of his crimes, fraud, threats, and the violent network he had maintained with his thugs. The authorities managed to arrest not only him, but also the accomplices who spread fear wherever they went. Each news report about the unfolding justice brought Eliza a mix of disbelief and relief. The man who had hunted her, who had tried to destroy her new life, was now far away, and finally, he could no longer touch her or Lucas. The farm began to fill with life again, but this time it was a different kind of life. Ethan and Eliza rebuilt their routine with care and attention. Every morning, sunlight streamed through the windows of the main house, illuminating the green fields and the sturdy barns. Lucas ran freely across the lawns, his laughter echoing among the trees, a trail of happiness that contrasted with the dark past. Eliza, with firm hands and a renewed smile, tended to the small garden near the porch, turning every space into a symbol of hope. Ethan stayed by her side, but now even closer, almost protectively, not out of necessity to watch over her, but from a silent and constant surrender. He participated in every activity, helped with the animals, organized the farm, but above all, he was present. Not just physically, but emotionally. Every gesture, every word, every look was a reminder that life could be rebuilt, and that true love grows not just in words, but in presence and mutual care. Then, on a golden autumn afternoon, Ethan took Eliza to the top of a small hill on the farm. The view was magnificent, vast fields, organized barns, and the sky tinged with shades of orange and pink from the setting sun. He held her hands firmly but gently, looking deep into her eyes. "I promise that no one will ever hurt you again," he said, his voice low but filled with emotion. "Neither you nor Lucas." A tear slid down her face, and he gently wiped it away with his thumb, taking his time, as if every gesture could erase years of fear. "We will live in peace. We'll build the life we truly deserve." Eliza felt her heart race. She placed her hands on his face, feeling the texture of his skin, the strength and tenderness mixed in a single touch. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for not giving up on us, for believing we could still have happiness." He breathed deeply, leaned in slightly, holding her face gently between his hands. "Eliza, He paused, his eyes shining with emotion. "I don't just want to protect you. I don't just want to take care of you and Lucas. I want to spend my entire life with you. I want to wake up every day knowing that you're mine, that we're a family." Ethan knelt on the hill, holding a small velvet box in his hands, opening it to reveal a simple, elegant ring, but one full of meaning. "Eliza, will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my whole life?" The world seemed to stop. The gentle wind, the bird's song, the distant sound of Lucas playing, everything reduced to his gaze, intense and sincere, and the love she felt overflow. "Yes," Eliza whispered, almost breathless, tears streaming freely. "Yes, I accept." He smiled, radiant, sliding the ring onto her finger with care. They embraced, and in that embrace, every fear, every pain, every struggle from the past disappeared. Their hearts beat together, firm, strong, united by something greater than either could have imagined: love, trust, and complete surrender. Lucas ran to them, jumping into both their arms, laughing and celebrating, as if he understood that now they were officially a family, a true fortress of love and protection. Night fell over the farm, but for Ethan, Eliza, and Lucas, the darkness didn't bring fear. It brought security, it brought hope, and it brought the eternal glow of a love that had survived the storm. Every touch, every look, every whispered word was a promise. Together, always, without fear of what might come. And so life went on, but now as it should have been from the beginning, full of love, peace, and the certainty that a true home isn't just a place, but being in the arms of those you love and trust. The farm pulsed with joy, laughter, and freedom. And at the top of that hill, beneath the sky tinged by the sunset, Eliza and Ethan sealed a love that promised to last forever. Like in the movies, the heart never forgets.